Welcome back to Season 2 of Showing Our Sass. I am your host, MartaGwyn, and today I am joined by my friend Cassandra. We are going to be talking about unboxing potential and reflecting on a good long time of having fun together and over 20 years of friendship. Cassandra and I get down with the get down. So y'all are getting a really good inside sneak peek at what the lady Cassandra and I get into. Cassandra is just as sassy as I am, and we have had some very pivotal growth moments together across this time, whether it was going to premieres or doing other kinds of things, marathons and whatnot. So I'm really excited for you all to hear our perspectives on how we view changes and everything that's going on with life right now. So let's get into it.
So I'm ready.
Tell the people who you are.
I am Cassandra Mallett. That's me. I am a public school teacher. I'm currently teaching for Atlanta Public Schools. 17 years in the classroom. I cannot believe it. 17 years in the classroom. I teach English. I love teaching high school. I started out in middle school and I wasn't strong enough for it. So I had to go to the older kids. You got to be a saint to be in middle school. So yeah.
Right here, you got to just your hair. Your hair is covering up your pretty necklace right here.
Okay.
You got, oh, did you mean that?
No. Oh, I didn't know that.
There you go.
Right
I get you right. I ain't gonna do you like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't even know.
Oh, you have anything else you want to say?
Yeah, no, that's all the receipts.
No, you have other things about you where you officially from. You want to claim. You want to tell people.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. So receipts. I'm a country girl. I'm from Mississippi. I went to Tougaloo College for undergrad. I went to Georgia State for grad. That's where I decided I wanted to teach. And I didn't even finish up that program. I ended up getting my master's in education from University of Phoenix. Started teaching in Florida, and I've been teaching in Georgia ever since.
Okay, I'm gonna say something here too, because this is important to understand how we are together in this space. So we went to Tougaloo at the same time in Mississippi, and we didn't know each other before we got there. We didn't know each other when we first got on campus with each other either, because we entered at different times. But where we really got to know each other was on the campus of New York University.
Yes, NYU.
Yes, which was a wonderful program. Actually, a main reason why I chose to go to Tougaloo was that I grew up watching the Cosby Show. Say, feel how you gotta feel. I grew up watching the Cosby Show, and Theo went to where? The New York
NYU.
And I was like, how can I figure out how to get there and not pay the arm, leg, and kidney that it costs to go there?
Okay.
And back in the day when everyone was first getting their colleges and universities onto the World Wide Web, as they called it, Tougaloo College had one of the worst, I love them, had one of the worst websites. It was brown sepia.
And it stayed that way for a long time, into the 2000s. Oh my gosh, it was so sad.
It was bad. And the thing is that I'm so grateful though, because they literally just took all of their written materials and threw it onto the website. And I had no problem with reading. So I read down to the minutia of it all. And it said, what was it? Faculty Student Resource Network Exchange Program. That's what the whole title was. To New York University was one of the places. New York University, Brown was a part of it. At the time, I think it was the dentistry school. Was it Boston University?
It may have been. It may have been Boston.
And I think maybe one other for the domestic sites. And these
it was a girls' school. I can't think of it.
No. Out of it then, but I think you're right. I think there was a all-girls school in there as well.
Yeah.
But this is when I began to understand the concept of a memorandum of understanding. A lot of HBCUs had these MOUs with non-HBCUs to try to give students and faculty chances to get access to more resources, and then also to allow students from those majority institutions to send people to Tougaloo. And when I saw it, it said something so important, that you are treated as though you were at your home institution while you were at that other partner school. And I had a full presidential scholarship to Tougaloo College. I said, oh baby, I'm going to NYU. And we almost did not have this coming together because I was going to go sophomore year. And I got guilted into staying. And so junior year, I said, I'll be damned. I'm going, I don't care about the rest of y'all, I'm out. And they were still mad at me because I was running the yearbook, I was the incoming editor of the newspaper. Had me I was taking campus photography kind of, who was the daggone official photographer? Because I swear, I was doing most of the publicity.
No, because I remember you with your camera. So
I mean,
I have no idea.
Loved it. Met Jesse Jackson that way, met so many people. It was amazing. But I put my foot down and said, no, I'm going junior year. This was, we hit the campus at NYU January of 2001.
Yeah.
And we'll never forget that because we went to NYU the last semester of old New York's existence.
Yes, we did. And I had that Polaroid picture of the Twin Towers. And I remember saying, I got to come back so I can explore the towers. Yep.
And so, I mean, I will never regret the decision to go that semester. I will never regret the time we got to spend in we'll just call that our flat. In Goddard Hall.
Definitely, yes.
I mean, two people who had really not spent a whole lot of time with each other. We didn't know. Yeah, well, we learned some things.
We did.
I
had such a good time.
We'll get into it a little bit later, but I learned a lot about life. I learned a lot about life and getting along with, I never grew up with a sister. And like, you were my first chance to really like spend that time. Like we were completely strangers in a strange land. And we were the only familiar thing to each other. So like, I'm so grateful that I had that experience with you because that's the kind of roommate experience I wanted to have in college.
Yeah, I feel you. Yes.
I in college and I still love her. But because I think life was familiar to her still in the space while we were on our main campus, she and I never really connected the way you and I did. Because she didn't need to rely on me. She had people from her hometown who she could go and have that shared life experience with. And so, yeah, no, I'm very grateful for that. So I just had to get that contact. Like, this chick, don't mess with her. I will roll out. Try me. No, actually, try Jesus, not me.
You silly, yes.
All right, with that introduction, now we can move on.
Okay.
And I want to ask you, what's one thing that you wish you had known when you began your career?
One thing that I wish I would have known. You know, people talk about being a teacher is thankless, that you're not going to have a lot of thank yous. That's not true. That's just one of the things that they always say. And so I came into it and I was like, I'm going to do a job that a lot of people will not thank me for and they will not appreciate. And I didn't care much in terms of the outside world, but it was like my students, because, you know, we move on, we graduate, we might see teachers again, we might not. One of the best things is they say thank you. The kids are really, really grateful immediately, and then graduation or at the end of the school year. when they go on in life and they go to college and they get married and have kids, they are so grateful. And a lot of people just make it seem like you won't get that. You get that a lot. And that's like the best feeling. That's
Correct customer
absolutely
feedback.
the best feeling. Yes. And so I wish that people would have really said that you do get thanks. And it's true, because two of my teachers, I think I have thanked them in long letters, probably about 5 times. Just like, you were so great. I am so thankful for you. So yeah, you do get a lot of that. And folks make it seem like you don't. Not true. I wish somebody would have told me that, because I was very scared going into teaching, because I just thought, I'm about to go into the trenches. I'm finna go to war. And this is gonna be hard. Okay. And it wasn't. Please excuse my dog. She's trying to get my attention if you hear her in the background.
I hear you, Cheska.
Cheska's like, tell her I'm a girl. Chill out. Okay.
That's all it is.
Right?
I like that. And I think I'll add on that too a little bit. I think we don't often give students kids credit for being tiny human beings. They're not all monsters all the time. And I don't know why we let it get into our heads. But I mean, first of all, I wish you would. You're not gonna run me. I'm grown. I've been where you are.
Honey,
you're not gonna run me, and I know where you're going. So there's nothing new under the sun, as the old folks used to tell us. I mean, they have challenges, they have different world circumstances, but essentially they're just little us's. And as long as you tap into that empathy, like, we need to stop stereotyping and vilifying each other, especially with this generational wars that was going on, which is beyond me, but maybe I shouldn't go there that soon.
We'll get there.
What would you consider to have been one of the greatest learning opportunities of your life?
I think, people always have those statistics about teaching, that folks that come into the field leave within 3 years. And for some, that is true. And then there was this stat, and I don't know where it came from, but it said that you really don't start teaching until year 5. And I remember when I heard that, I think I was in year 3, and I was like, whatever. And so by the time I hit year 5, it made sense, because it was like you got into a groove.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you started to get into a groove, you learned how to break from curriculums that didn't serve, or curricula. Let me say that right. I'm an English teacher. Oh man.
I will explain. Okay.
Yeah, but if it doesn't serve the kids, then you know how to break from it and do what is needed to fulfill one obligation, and then do what's needed to fulfill what you need for the kids. Mm-hmm. So it was really that moment in time where I really started learning to create assignments that didn't bog me down and have me working hard every night, but at the same time, it challenged the kids. Mm-hmm. And it made them think, and it made them analyze, which is what I needed them to do. So it was really just a time period, not just, like an event or something like that. So yeah, year 5, it was like, there was a click and I got it. Yeah.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. If I'm hearing you right and understanding that once you hit that groove, teachers, maybe some who may be afraid to go into teaching, they'll think, oh, I got to teach to the test, or I'm going to run the risk of not getting my raise, or have some kind of penalty or whatever it is. When it comes down to it, I don't care what kind of rules are put in place by administrators. Some may have taught, you may not have taught. as long as you're taking care of the needs of the kids, they're not really going to come for you. Not really. I mean, you can't break the law, but I mean,
right. Let's be lawful
at all times, especially with children. But I mean, you do have some space in there so that you can adjust to the needs that are presented to you. Not every kid's going to learn exactly the same way.
Yeah. And the thing when it comes to the teaching to the test, thankfully, that's slowly going away. I'm so happy it's going away. But there was it was coming to a point where it was hard to kind of do both, to really give the kids what they need and give that test preparation the time that you needed to give it. And I would say that was about like year 15. I was just noticing the creative things that I used to do, I couldn't. The joy that we would have in reading things in class, we didn't have that joy because we couldn't deep dive into the text the way that we used to. And so seeing things over the past few years turn around and everybody going against Common Core, even though I actually like it, but seeing people go against it, it actually helped to make people not focused on tests. So it was like, oh, okay, the creativity is coming back. We can do some different things and evaluate kids in different ways because, like you said, they learn differently. So yeah, I was so happy some of this testing went away.
I will say, this is me, Marta. Me, Marta is saying this, not Cassandra, me, Marta, who doesn't work at anybody's school district, all right? I've never liked the test. I don't know how we fell so far from heaven that we got to the place where we were like, everything that you learn must come out like a computer. And that's the way we're gonna know how much money we should send to the schools and how much money should be paid to a teacher. I don't know how we fell so far from heaven on that, because that's ridiculous. Okay. They experimented on us. The 80s kids, they just started throwing test after test after test. You know, all those companies were just kind of playing with us, and I get it.
What was the Iowa test?
The Iowa Test of Basic Skills, ITBS.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I got a fun story if you want me to tell you about it. I have no problem because it is my personal, actual truth.
Go ahead.
Here you go. All right. So kids who were in the Iowa City Community School District were often used as testers for new questions that were being developed for the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, which was administered not just in Iowa, but in many other parts of the country. Mm-hmm. And by the way, we weren't compensated for that. So, yeah. And there was a test question. And there is a record somewhere in the school district on this, unless they have gotten rid of it because of legal things or whatever. But there was a question that was put onto the ITBS as a
I think I remember this story.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you.
This question. Please
this
do.
This question said, what color do you turn when you are embarrassed?
Yes.
Or sick. No, what color do you turn when you're sick? Okay, that's what it was, when you're sick. And the options were, they were like four, it was multiple choice, there were like four options. One of them I'm gonna forget, but I know one of them was green, and that was definitely the one they wanted us to say. Mm-hmm. One was purple, and I knew they didn't want us to say that, because I know what they associated purple with. And one was red. And I want to say, I can't remember what the other one is, so I'm not going to say the next one, but I know that they had red, I know they had purple, and I know they had green. First of all, I was like, why in the world? Oh, blue. Blue was the other one. Now, here's color association. When you're typing reactions of skin color changes off of people who are of a licensed people, my recessive tendency, red equates to embarrassed or warm. Mm-hmm. Green is associated with you're ill. Yeah. Purple means somebody beat the shit out of you. Mm-hmm. And blue means you're choking, you're out of air.
Yes.
Okay. But when you are someone of melanated persuasion, heavily melanated persuasion, you're not going to look blue. You're not going to turn red for anything.
Exactly.
You're definitely not going to turn green, but you might look purple. You might. Okay. And so I was like, first of all, this question is ridiculous. Second of all, I'm going to give the color that trends toward a dark-skinned person. There's a chance that you could go ahead and do this, because I was like, I want this fight, right? Because it was just ridiculous. The basic skills. What does this have to do with us being, learning? And sure enough, when they ran that ScanTron, that good old ScanTron, you know?
We still, depending on the schools, but yeah, a lot of them still use them. ScanTrons, girl.
PTSD. When those test things came back, see, this was when they probably still do the ScanTron. They would have a little line it would print on there to show something was right or wrong or whatever in there. Yeah. And I remembered that number, that test number. And I went, I said, oh no. Now, it wasn't often that I would go ahead and call my parents in on something. I usually try to handle stuff myself. But on that one, I said, this is important. I'm taking this to my parents because there's something wrong here.
Yes.
Y'all need to understand, for context in this, I was 9, maybe 10. But I was certainly in elementary school when this happened. Okay, so if you thought I was in high school or junior high or middle school, no, I was definitely in elementary school when this happened. And when I brought it to them, they were like, wait, they had what? I said, this is the number, and this is what they had. And I told them, because we talked at dinner every night. I said, this is what they did. And my dad was like, my dad worked for the Office of Affirmative Action at the University of Iowa at the time, too. So I was kind of raised to hear things like that. And so he contacted his friend, who was the district equity coordinator, and said, something ain't right here. And so she went and opened an investigation. And I am responsible for getting that question struck off of the Iowa Test of Basic Skills. So you're welcome.
Girl, yes. Because we have been in so many trainings where people have talked about that question, and just certain questions that would be on there that might concern yachting, sailing, different things like that, where we're just like, y'all really think this is sort of like knowledge that everybody is going to have? All right.
So when I see stuff on social media where people have questions in schools that are talking about slave auctions, like in the modern day and things like that, like I tend to believe the absurdity, because I was in a scenario where they did something like that. And I was like, I'm gonna need for y'all to have more diversity in the people who are checking stuff. And just because someone brown don't mean that they are necessarily going to be sensitive to what might not play well. I'll give you another example. This was when I was grown. I was working for a certain institution, I won't say which one, but they were putting together a fundraising pitch that was supposed to go into a very Black populated area in this state. And they had a picture of a student they had taken in the library. Beautiful little Black girl. I shouldn't say little girl, she's in college. She studies. She had her hair tied up in one of our scarves, right? With her glasses on in the library studying. And they were going to send that in part of a fundraising campaign leaflet to this very Black community, where the other people who were in this were all white, and they were all beat face, hair pieces, pristine cheerleading outfits and all kinds of stuff. And this was the only chocolate child who was in this publication, and she had a do-rag on her head, essentially. And I saw it before it went out, and I said, you might not want to send that. You're sending that where? Right. You might not want to send that. I have a feeling you're gonna get some really angry calls. What do you mean? She's so cute, she's adorable. I said, do you understand the history of head coverings in African American culture? Do you not understand what it looks like to have the juxtaposition of that there? And you're sending this to African American individuals of a certain socioeconomic status and asking them to give you money when what they gonna say is, why didn't you tell that child to go comb her hair before you took her picture and put her out there like that? I was like, I don't think you want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So these are the
Yeah.
cases for diversity. You might not understand that.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
essentially like, I guess the cultural equivalent of that would be, you went and snapped a picture of a tri-delt before she put her makeup on, while she had rollers in her hair, after her man had dumped her.
Like, you just don't do that.
I mean, that's kind of like what it is. You would never think to take that picture and then send it somewhere in a fundraising campaign, you know.
Right.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. And you know, when it comes to different things like that, like you were talking about with diversity, it is so important. And that's one of the great things, being able to teach in a place like Atlanta, because there is diversity all throughout. Mm-hmm. And people, because I really do believe that some people mean well. I don't want to just throw them out. And because we've seen it, we had an example at our school. This guy, he was a coach and he was also an English teacher. He was a great teacher. The boys loved him. The kids loved him. Mm-hmm. And we were in a meeting and he said, we're going to start with Huckleberry Finn, blah, blah, blah. Uh-oh. And I want to talk about the N-word. And I want to talk about that. And he was talking about assignment ideas. And we were like, no. Because we were like, we know what your intention is, but you have got to understand, if any of those kids go home and tell their parents that you said it in class, it's going to be a whole different thing.
Every time you write your book.
And the thing of it is, with the climate and everything that is going on right now, we as a school wouldn't even be able to defend you. We'd have to be like, sorry, dude, you done lost your job. So we're glad you came to us and said, this is what I'm thinking about. And I was like, that's good, but no, don't touch it. I'm like, we were like, these kids know enough about the word. They're good. So you just don't say it. Move on with class and teach it like it's normal. You were fine. And he did. And he was good.
And we need
but it helped
spaces like that. We need that. What y'all did is exactly what we need more of in America right now.
Yes. And sometimes that conversation doesn't take place. And when people don't know, and they need somebody to say, maybe you need to take this approach. Maybe you shouldn't say this. Maybe you should say that. And thankfully, there are trainings that are coming along that it's like, and I hate that it's always focused on Black boys, but, it's needed and it's necessary. And even though there are people of color that think they think they don't need the trainers, because we would be arrogant as I don't know what. We sitting up in there, you really gonna tell us how to teach Black kids? Really? But it actually, one time that I was in one of those trainings, it really helped, because I had a big Hispanic population. And I could not understand why I had students that were willing to get in trouble for their friends. So like, let's say one of the kids is on crutches and his friend has his book bag. Instead of just coming to class with his book bag and letting his friend arrive when he arrives, he's like, I wasn't going to leave my boy. And I could not I was like, you carried his books. You have helped him. I will let him in class, but you have to get to class on time. And I found out the level of loyalty meant more to them than an arbitrary rule. Mm-hmm. So and that didn't make me change my rule, but it made me understand this is the way that they perceive things. This is the way they think. And it wasn't a generalization, but it helped me not to be like that disciplinarian that's just like, nope, that's it. And I'm just gonna throw you away. Mm-hmm. So it helped me to be more understanding. And we need that.
And it's important for teachers to feel empowered to make those kinds of decisions because there are case-by-case basis. You made me think about, I was interviewing another teacher in the series, and she told me this, and I almost cried. Well, people try to make me cry on the thing. But she said, I had known you for a very, very long time, but it wasn't until I actually went to work at that institution, and she had a chance to see how I teach, even though I wasn't on the teaching faculty, but I was in a role of supervising some of the students in the classroom program. And she said, I saw how you approach dealing with the students. She said, and I learned something in watching that. And this is because I was raised a child educator, I'm sure. But she said, you put so much of yourself into the act of teaching. Like you go all the way wherever you need to go to meet that student where they are. And she said, I realized that while I was in there and I was working to do the job really well, she said, I didn't really put myself into it in trying to meet my students where they were. And she said, and I didn't know this until she said this in the interview. She said, it changed how I teach in my classroom because now I'm not afraid to share part of my personal experience. I mean, she's not gonna tell all her business, but she said but I look for the ways of relating to my students differently. And she teaches in the sciences. Because I saw how effectively you use that to reach students, sometimes students who we were having trouble figuring out how to reach. And I was like, well, yeah, you got to connect to them on a human level. You saw something that is not a bad thing, loyalty, camaraderie, that's not a bad thing. But you're also right in that he's got to understand that there are consequences in the greater world if you decide to set aside a rule for something else that you believe in. And where I think a lot of our young people have a disservice right now, they'll think that I didn't do anything bad, so why am I suffering a consequence? Well, you made a decision, principally taken, but there's sometimes are consequences you have to face when you make those principled choices. Yeah. I love it. Oh, what advice would you give someone who was thinking about pursuing teaching?
The advice that I would give, for one, I would say do it. You find so many teachers that when they find out that someone wants to teach, they're just like, don't do it. And my thing is like, no, if you're thinking about it, do it. Because you have people that come into education, they weren't even thinking about education. They were like, I just need a job. I just graduated and no one's hiring me, so I'm gonna come here. And they still do great jobs as teachers. And so if you're really interested in it, I think that's wonderful because that means you're always going to try to improve. So my first thing would be like, do it. My second thing is don't listen to all the naysayers. There is negativity in education. There's negativity in every job. There is negativity in corporate, in whatever it is that you do, there is negativity. I think the thing of it is that we veteran teachers need to continue to try to help new teachers to fit in and stay. And that happens not just by helping that individual, but challenging what's going on in the system and say, you know, don't tell me that I need to practice self-care and then come to me with 10 more assignments of what I need to do. Like, don't do that. And sometimes it's been as simple as them watching us say, if this is not a requirement, can we please not do it? Well, how about we do it in a different way? Because when they come to us with, we need y'all to do this and this and this, as long as we just sit there and we stew and we are just upset, nothing happens. But when we meet them with a way that won't overburden us and they can still meet whatever their goal is, then the new teachers, they know, okay, I can stand up, I can speak up. and it's okay. And like, that's really my main thing. Don't listen to all the naysayers, because you can really enjoy and have fun in this field. Yeah, and that there are growing opportunities, because a lot of people think you go into the classroom, you stay into the classroom. No, there are a lot of growing opportunities. Some people, focus on things like discipline, and they end up creating curriculums around discipline. There are people that create curriculums. I did it again. Oh, I hate it. Yeah, I know I did it. Don't tell me. But, they create entire programs. And then not just that, they move throughout the system, and not just administration, but they move into district positions, and they get to be the decision makers and, help to reform certain things that wasn't right. Because it's like, I remember when I was in the classroom. So if I get this position, then I know this will help the teachers to help the kids. So a lot of people think you kind of get in and that there's no room for growth. Untrue. Such room for growth.
Let's have a little fun bird watching for a second, because I'm interested now. Do you think that education, as in K-12 teacher as a profession, has a PR problem?
Child, yeah.
I guess maybe because I was raised by a classroom teacher and I was around a lot of stuff and I saw other people who did it different ways. I've always, I confess this to another teacher. I had interviewed a lot of teachers. I confess this to another teacher I interviewed. I interviewed Justin too. You remember Justin Bell?
I'd have to see a face.
It's okay. You saw him. He was in choir with me. But he's a teacher in Dallas right now, Dallas Metroplex. And I confessed to him, I really did run from the idea of being a teacher, because that's what my mama did. And I did see some of it wasn't so much from her students. My mom was always down, okay? But she ran into a lot of conflict with administrators because she just wanted to do the job. And oftentimes I know she felt like they were getting in the way of her doing the job, because she was about that early literacy development and all kinds of, she just wanted to do the job by whatever.
Which is so important.
And because it was a real critical thing. If those kids could not break the print code, they were not going to be successful in school, period. All right. And she's still hardcore about that. Let her see something yourself. And when I think about where I was graduating from Tougaloo College with an English major and a minor in journalism, making the decision, instead of going ahead and pursuing a journalism master's, which was my original goal, back at University of Arkansas, I made a decision to go ahead and step into sociology, which I also found interesting, but that was more because of my relationship situation at the time, as you know. And getting to the end of that path, still not feeling like I was connected to what I wanted to do, jumping over into law school after I finished my master's, well, close to when I finished my master's, so it kind of mashed together, realizing I absolutely didn't want to do that. I mean, absolutely, fundamentally, heck no. Too many rules, way too many rules. I don't know.
Definitely, yes.
Oh, you're just a great lawyer because you speak so well and you know how to stand for. No, oh God, there's so much more to law school than that. No. But there was a point, and this was after I started dating my now husband, where we said, neither one of us is really happy with the trajectory of our careers. And we both have some experience with teaching, me at the graduate level, him also at the graduate level in one of his programs. We said, maybe we could spend a couple of years teaching in the classroom. We know the mechanics of it. We have strong foundations. Let's look at a teacher alternative program. And I didn't go into detail like this, but I think I told you, I got rejected by Teach for America. So did he.
That's not surprising. I know of some people who have been rejected.
And the thing is, we have master's degrees. And we both had undergraduate degrees from Tougaloo. And I knew there were people from Tougaloo who had gotten into that program who'd done well. And we said, okay, let's look for a place where we know we'll be comfortable. Maybe other people might not. And we said we would be willing to go to the Delta. We said Memphis or the Delta. Rejected. Didn't make it.
Wow. What?
Round. Not the first round. And I said, huh. And he took it way worse than I did. Way worse. And it took a while to kind of recover from that. I'm pretty sure that's why he refuses to even consider teaching, even at the college level now. Because he was like, if I can't, with my credentials, get approved to go into a program like Teach for America, so people with Teach for America understand that you should always follow up and tell people why. Maybe they just had all the people they needed and things, but there was no explanation, just rejected, not moving forward.
Yeah.
And he was done with it. But I know also, because I'm also big into travel, that teachers have got an amazing resource. Once you've gotten that initial certification, if you maintain that, you can teach at international schools all over the world. You can get to the GS system and work on military bases.
Yes.
Leverage it into speech language pathology if you want to. I mean, there's all this stuff, and you can live well. I've seen teachers, like teacher couples, who are raising their kids hopping country to country. They're living on Madagascar. And I'm like, don't know, you can't live life lush and lavish as a teacher. Yeah. But I think education has a PR problem because they're thinking about the poor broke down teacher who is spending all her spare change. It's always her, never him. Spending all her spare change, having to ask her mama and them to watch her kids so she can go ahead and do all the stuff she got to do for these other kids whose family's not doing what. I mean, this is the image that they have. Like, they're burned out. By the time they get to the summer, they're just mad and they're angry. So anyway, that's the end of that line of thought. But I had another one.
Go ahead.
So why do you think you have so many loud naysayers who are essentially of the veteran class of teachers talking nonsense to these younger teachers? Because to me, that sounds like sabotage. That sounds like self-sabotage.
I don't think it's necessarily nonsense. It's definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my first year of teaching, I was because usually when you come back to school, there's always this big rally of some kind. Mm-hmm. Many schools, many districts do it where it's always this rally. And yeah, it was my second year. I sat near this woman and she was completely negative, did not have anything good to say. And in the back of my mind, I said, oh my God, I never want to be you. And then fast forward some years later, had to go to a training. I saw a teacher that I used to work with. We were so happy. So we were chopping it up. And she also had one of the new teachers. It was his second year in our group, our little group that was sitting together. And I had nothing positive to say because of the space that I was in at the time. And I remember leaving that day feeling really, really bad because I was like, I became that teacher and I let a new teacher hear me. Because I was just like, oh my God, the exact same experience I have had. And I'm sure he sat there like, you should leave if you are this unhappy. And one of the things that I realized, just like with life, you're going to go through and have some really good years, and then you're going to have some really bad years. Yeah. And the problem is the people that have their bad years, they scream it out so loud, that has become the motto of education. Like when I watch documentaries and they're just like you said, oh, teachers are burnt out and blah, blah, blah. So they don't go to parent-teacher meetings. What?
Teachers are constantly going to parent-teacher meetings or they would be fired.
Right. Like, no, untrue. I text my parents quite a bit and we talk, we get on the phone quite a bit. But when they did that documentary, they were focused on one school, one particular thing. So, and that's always the way that they want to, you know, show it. It's just like, and of course, I want to specify, they do it with public school teachers. It's always that we are just stretched so thin. We are just, you know, and it has. My first year, my biggest class was like 42. And I was like, really? I got to teach all of these kids? But the next semester, because of what they were trying to do, they cut that class in half. Mm-hmm. And they spread those kids out. And I didn't have a class over 25. So things like that do happen in public schools, but it's not always like that. So I think one of the things is people have to start focusing on the system and stop with the whole, oh, teachers, take care of yourself. Yes, teachers know to take care of themselves, but how can we do this smarter, not harder? Mm-hmm. And what can we put into place? Because that's what really helped me when I started creating assignments that could move from year to year. And all I had to do was tweak it a little bit. And I created easy ways to get through research papers and stuff like that. I didn't feel overwhelmed. And then I learned how to get to school, be super productive. And then when it was time to go, I could go home, I could work out, I could sleep, I could, you know, go out, I could have a life. So I think that's one of the big things, and we need to show teachers that are happy with what they do. And just like with any other field that they go into recruiting, we need to recruit like that. Mm-hmm. I remember being at Tougaloo and someone got hired in Texas to teach, and she was like, and this is sad because at the time, you know, she was really happy. She's like, I'm starting out with 30,000 and they're giving me a signing bonus. And like if we want more Black men, Hispanic men in education, find those signing bonuses, find those incentives to say, come, we need you. And even though I'm in the, you know, humanities, everybody is like STEM, we need the science, coding, and and when I'm at school, I always find out that we have money. It's like, we have money for this. So I'm just like, why are we not recruiting and showing people that they would enjoy coming to this system?
All right, we're gonna debunk some myths right here. We're gonna do this together. Can we tag team? Okay. There is plenty of money for education in the United States of America. The idea that we don't have enough money or that we are not putting money in education is a myth. It's false. All right. What we do with that money is what drives me bonkers. Because in some of my past roles, while I told you I've never been in the classroom per se, mm-hmm. in that way, in K-12, I have been in and around and charged with supporting them. So I'm going to say, first of all, one of the biggest things people can learn in helping to make education better in this country, listen to teachers.
Yes.
Listen to them, like really listen to them. Because they are professionals and they do know what they need in their classrooms. They know what they're missing, all right? Stop making, I think I'm gonna call this teacher exhaustion porn. I'm tired of these extreme example, Joe Clark scenario nightmares that people wanna act like every public school is like that. That is not the case. Mm-hmm. Are there some, you know, welcome to the jungles? Yeah. So,
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
I mean, they're scary. I want security, okay? But that is not by any stretch the majority of schools where people are sending their children in the country. If that were the case, we would not be able to function at all. Okay. So trying to act like you need to look at, I'm gonna click on Netflix to see what the state of education is in your public schools is crazy. Because you could just go ahead and call up and say, can I come in and volunteer? Can we have a community action group Can we be
Right.
involved in the PTA, which doesn't have to mean that you got a kid in that school, and figure out food things, like what's going on? But I live in Little Rock. I have the ability to go to any public school meeting, and you can do them easy with Zoom right now, and find out what's going on in my school.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't have to wait for someone to make a movie about it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, when they think about money, they think about it in terms of teacher pay. And because you can go online and look up the salaries for many places. Now, if you're fortunate and you're living in certain metropolitan areas, teacher pay is pretty comparable with, I can't say it's comparable with someone of the same education and experience that I have. That sucks. But it's comparable with the cost of living and things like that. And you really will find that. You will find that you can have a good living, like you said, we ain't got mansions, but we ain't hurting. And so you find those areas in Texas, areas in Georgia, areas in Michigan, areas in Chicago and New York. Those are ones that I know for sure in terms of pay. It's not horrible. Mm-hmm. Now, there are certain places you'll go and you'll look at that salary and you're just like, no, I'm not going to do that.
There's some context to that too, okay? Here's a quick little lesson in how we fund education in America. We probably ought to rethink it a little bit, all right? So public schools, public schools get money from the federal government through a system called titles, okay? Those titles, there's a whole rigorous schema tied to census records and things like that, and local statistical data that tells them you have these many students in this community, and we have this much from the state. They dispense it to the state in the titles, and then the state has a responsibility. Whoever's your state Department of Education has responsibility for making sure that allocation goes out according to those rules for the federal portion. All right. Then there's the state portion that comes in, okay? And a lot of the state and or local support that goes towards schools is tied to the property value of that community. Now, we set the system up way back in the day, all right? That part of the system is the part that probably needs to get fixed. We fixate on how much money the Fed is sending to the state, but we don't think about, well, if industry has pulled out, if we have not made effective relationships with the local Lockheed Martin plant and the 3M plants and stuff like that, if we have not negotiated or if we have relieved them of their tax duty to contribute directly into the pot that we use from the state level to support education, we then have to rely on their goodwill and their corporate philanthropy strategies. And they are probably going to target it at the schools where what? Their employees are sending their kids, not the full district, not the So there are consequences, and I'm coming for the people who say, we need to not tax the businesses or they're going to run away or whatever it is. When you don't tax your corporate entities, then you reduce the resources that can be equally, equitably distributed within a community to take care of stuff. So some schools do okay and some schools don't. That's the model that we have in here. So now you got public schools trying to have a foundation, hiring development officers to help them figure out how to raise money because you won't charge the companies in your communities the daggone taxes. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So if you want
to TED Talk.
Either you got to change the way that you fund education, all right, at the state and local level, change it and say, if a corporate entity is going to do business with one school in the district, they got to do business with the school district as a whole. You don't have to raise their taxes, but you gotta help make sure that they're taking, because okay, I spent too much time looking at how these structures work and how they fail. And that's we got to figure out the way, and each state's got to figure it out on their own because there's only so much federal regulation that people will allow. Okay. So
I do want to clarify, there are definitely schools that are in need. Even within our district, we see certain schools that they get a particular treatment that other schools don't get. We also see they may get certain technology that other schools don't get. But one of the things that I've always been teaching at Title I schools, I've been teaching at some of those Joe Clark schools. I feel like my principal that I have right now is a Joe Clark type principal. But many times when it's about doing what we have to do for the kids, a lot of times in the district, they will start moving things around to make sure that the funding goes in that direction. So there's definitely need, but there is money there. And sometimes people just don't know how to seek it out. Sometimes there are programs that are just sitting and waiting, and people don't know how to seek it out and get those programs. One time when I started teaching AP, they were like, oh, we have a program that's like for 3 years, you can get this amount of funding from Donors Choose, and it's going to be guaranteed. You don't even have to shop it. They already said, we'll cover it for 3 years. And I was just like, I actually have to take Okay, good. Shar.
All right. Let's see. I probably got to redirect this now, but I think we were coming into the place where we were saying you wanted to make sure people understood that there was funding, that you were talking about a program in particular with Donors Choose. I want to make sure you had a chance to go ahead. Did you want to get back in on the finding out you had money from Donors Choose that was
that basically there are a lot of programs out there like that where, you know, and of course, you know, because you have administrators, you have different people in different roles that are like, there's money, we're going to get it for you. Oh, you're doing this, we're going to get it for you. You want to do this program, you want to mentor or whatever, and they will help you. One of the biggest things that you can do is just ask what is out there and start at that local level with, you know, administrators, because there will be someone on staff that's like, yeah, it's my job to get y'all money for this. And then especially if it's connected to the standards of the state and things like that, it will be, you could go to the assistant principal and they'll be like, oh yeah, we can arrange, you want to tutor this, you want to have this type of program to help them to pass that test or to, you know, help them pass classes or graduate or something like that. They will find the money to make it happen. So yeah.
They have to be able to get over something that I like to call FOLO, fear of losing out. Not FOMO. FOLO, fear of losing out. I think they just require a little bit of bravery on the part of the teacher, particularly newer teachers tend to be some of them a little bolder because they don't know not to ask about something. Right. I think your senior veteran teachers, they're certainly going to know what has worked and what hasn't because they've had the time to observe. But maybe those who are just coming into year 5, you know, they're getting their groove, they're figuring out how to work with what they have, but maybe they don't know to ask about a certain thing, or maybe they've had a school or district shift, you know, where they're relearning the environment and who's there to be a resource for them and helping with that kind of stuff. Or like, I want to do this program, but I run into folks saying, I want to do this thing, my kids need it, but they'll never support it because such and such went and tried to ask for this and they got shot down and they got passed over for, you know, section lead or teaching lead or something like that they really cared about, or they got given the class from hell the next year or something like that, and it was a retaliation. You know, these things that we create, these fictions we create in our minds sometimes. But I'll say from someone who has been on the outside looking in, see, I was different. For someone who is from the outside looking in, when you have a situation where someone is trying to, from the outside, bring resources into a school that says they need something, and someone comes in and performs an audit, and they find a closet full of stuff piled high with shrink wrap on it still that hasn't been used, and now they got to figure out how to explain to a grantor that their stuff didn't get used. They can't see their pretty pictures because the school has stockpiled it. I call that FOLO. I think oftentimes administrators and sometimes teachers who are worried that once they use something, they won't be able to get more of that something, so they hoard it. That causes a problem for the people, administrators, fundraisers who are going saying we need to get more money, because when they can't show those pretty pictures to the funders, and in fact they're showing them a picture, well, they actually didn't use it for what you said, then people don't want to give them money. So
right.
Again, those soft skills that people want to talk about are important. Communication, trust building, team building, all that stuff. If you've got people who are siloed and they're scared, then you're going to have a less effective educational environment. And
yeah,
that's something that I don't think they give a whole lot of workshop training for that.
They don't. They really, really don't, because I never did. Many times, even now, a lot of times I still don't. I just have to, it's just something that I've noticed. So when they say, oh, we need to have this tutoring program or Saturday school, and when they say that, a lot of people always think, oh, well, they're going to ask us to volunteer our time. I have never had it where they've just said, will you come up here? When I work on a Saturday, it's because I choose to. And so if I choose, then that's volunteer. But many times when they're just like, we need this program, it's not one of those, we need you to work for free and sacrifice yourself. It's like, no, we can pay you. And then they'll just be like, you know, again, because it's for the kids, we got transportation, we can set up transportation, we can like get them some pizzas to feed them while they're here and things like that. So there's definitely shortages out there. However, there are times when it's just like, even if you get told no once, somebody might say yes to this one. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was your presentation, because it can't be you just walk in there and you're like, yeah, I want to start a mentoring program. I need $500 or something, you know. But it's like, no. But when you show them a plan and the data and everything that says, this is what we're going to do and this is what we're going to achieve, and if you help me with this, like, how can we get this? And sometimes, even if the answer is no, they might tell you where to go to get a yes. And so it's just a matter of, you know, like you said, what is it, FOLO?
FOLO, fear of losing out.
Yes.
And see, that's one of the things that I am so excited about. Having had the experience, having friends like you who are in education on that side of the aisle, and me being in that whole, you know, fiduciary responsibility, you know, keep stuff in compliance and whatnot, and then find money. I realized there was a gap. We ran an amazing program in one of the states that I worked in, and it was aimed at trying to help teachers. To some degree, we did listen to them. They said, you know, we need lesson plan ideas. We need a way to share this information. We need all these different kinds of things. And we need money for equipment to go into schools for buying things to extend learning and whatnot. Okay, so a lot of my teachers said they needed these little mini grants. They need like $500, $1,000 to go and get something, you know, magnetile, so they could help teach principles of physics and things like that.
Right.
And they claimed they couldn't get that money in their school. So they were like, okay, we're gonna write you into a part of the state grant. We're gonna get the money, we're gonna distribute it to the school, and then you'll have it. Bada bing, bada boom, done, right? No one thought about the fact that most public schools, most K-12 schools don't have what universities have in the way of a research and sponsored programs office. They don't know how to do grant accounting. They know how to receive title money because there's a structure for that, but they don't know what to do with private money, many of them, that comes in, that gets washed to the state and then comes to the schools. And a lot of people are legally adverse to spending money if they aren't sure they aren't going to get in trouble when they spend it. So we had thousands of dollars that districts were sending back to the state at the end of a of a state fiscal year because they didn't want to get in trouble for keeping something on their books, but they weren't sure how to spend it. Or maybe the teacher who wrote the grant, they wrote it the year before and then they were moved to a different building. And we had no device to let the money follow the teacher. But we knew we couldn't give the money directly to the teacher because that would have violated federal rules, right?
Right, right.
So when we're thinking about putting these programs together, we have to listen and we have to go out and understand the lay of the land. We don't need to put an undue burden on schools that are not situated to do stuff like that and the way that universities, colleges and universities are. Now, to our defense, the colleges and universities were supposed to take a more affirmative role in taking care of those kinds of things, but a college and university is not set up to buy equipment for an elementary school.
Right, right.
They are supposed to tag things, be responsible for it on their campuses. So you have these fractured, these gaps that exist when you're trying to partner and do some of those kinds of things. But one of the things I think we didn't ever consider, and what I do now as I do advising for people is, did you ever think about writing into the grant that you were going to send the money to the schools in their state title allocation, in the correct use category?
Right, right.
If you want to do teacher professional development, when it leaves the state, let it be assigned through their title appropriation instead of sending it from a different agency that they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
They would have had to present a budget saying where they were going to put that additional money and whatnot. Bada bing, bada boom. Work within a system that already works for them. And then they're going to know how to track, how to make sure they're doing it. They're going to know how to report it. They report it to your sister agency, which is the education department. And then you tell the education department, now y'all need to make sure you give us these reports on time so we can keep this other federal money coming in the way it needs to. But I think like that. And a lot of people don't. They're just thinking about how I do it for my particular agency or my particular entity. And the burden or the lack, the teachers and the students who you were trying to help in the first place. So I enjoy empowering people. If you can get them sitting there long enough to understand we can work through this. Don't throw your hands up and give up. We can work through this. We just got to think about how to mesh these dissimilar organizations that all just want to make sure that teachers and students are supported in the way that they supported. We can work it out, but it's a little uncomfortable when you're trying to figure out how to build a bridge.
Yeah.
That was a lot. All right. I probably ought to stop preaching. I'm going to be asking you more questions. Let's get back to that.
Okay.
We dealt with myths already, so I think we handled that pretty good. Who is the person you feel has been most influential in your life or group?
I got two. One, my great grandmother. I was raised by her. She was unique because Mississippi, early 1900s and stuff like that, most of the time Black people were sharecropping. And thankfully, her husband, my great granddaddy, he got land from over 100 acres of land from his grandfather. And we got all of that recorded. But basically, they became,
Your great granddaddy.
Yes. So that set them in a special place where they didn't have to sharecrop. They were able to have more and send their kids off to college, the ones that wanted to go. So by the time it came to me, I was third generation college goer, where some of my classmates were first generation. So
you third gen. Mississippi born, third generation college. All right.
It happens. And so just them setting up that foundation of education being important. And she only went to 8th grade and she didn't even continue, but for her, education was important. And she was just always the biggest influence on my life. So she was one. And then I actually just had a cousin who working through, she was the type that was willing to be vulnerable. Like now people are understanding the importance of being vulnerable, but she was doing it when I was in college, and she and I grew very close to one another. And I learned how to navigate life and emotions watching her and talking to her. So as she was going through things and she would just open up and talk to me, that helped me. So that helped me in many ways, even career-wise, because times when I was taking a lot of things personal or things didn't go right, I took it personal. I learned how to love my career deeply, but at the same time, not take it personal when things don't go my way or things don't happen the way that I want them to go. And that helped me to stay in education. It really, really did. So watching her grow just helped me to grow. It was just one of the best things I could have ever experienced. So those are my biggest influences.
Oh, I like it. So I know you, because you told me this, that you're kind of slipping into a fascination with horror. I'm going to lead with that.
I'm slipping into a what?
A fascination with horror. Horror.
Oh, yeah.
Horror. We'll make sure we pronounce that properly. Horror. So in that vein, are you reading anything that's in the horror genre right now that's inspiring you? Or?
You know what? Horror is the one thing that I don't read a lot.
You just watch it.
I just watch it. I tried reading it, but it was different for me. And I was reading it because I was trying to work on my writing skills and creating imagery better. And I was like, what better to do it than horror? Because it has to create an atmosphere. So I tried reading it and I never stuck to it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not reading a lot of horror, unfortunately.
What are you reading that you enjoy right now?
I just finished reading Harriet Tubman's biography. It was a biography on her, and I love reading fiction. Nonfiction is so hard for me to get through. So like, I'll put it like this. I was reading it before I got married, and I'm divorced. And I just finished it.
Oh my.
This month. It's just so hard for me to do. But it was so good because now all those things that I was learning about her when everybody just thought she was the Underground Railroad and that was it, but now they know it's so much more to her. All those things I was just reading in that book, and I was always fascinated by her. So I just finished reading that. And I'm about to go ahead and read, since I watched the show, Handmaid's Tale. And there is a sequel to it that I'm going to read also.
Wait, the original Handmaid's Tale or the movie adaptation version of Handmaid's Tale?
No, you know, the
Margaret Atwood original.
Yeah, now that's what I'm reading. Well, that's what I'm about to be reading. But you know, there's a show based on it on Hulu.
Oh, I know the show.
Okay,
I just pointed out to you, Margaret Atwood's original Handmaid's Tale. Okay, I read that and it changed my life when I was young. Okay, and because of that, I've not yet allowed myself to watch the show fully on Hulu. I've seen some of it because there was also a interestingly made movie in the late 80s, early 90s of it. And that was probably the first book adaptation movie that I know to my recollection that made me leery of reading the book first and then thinking the movie was going to be worth crap, because they changed something that was so pivotal to the story at the end in the movie that it completely destroyed the movie for me. I mean, it was a huge deal, and I think they thought it was a minor change. It was a huge deal. Well, let me not ruin it for you. There's a really important fact at the end of Margaret Atwood's original work, and I just want to make sure if you're reading, make sure you're reading the original work, not something.
So wait a minute, are you saying that after the movie came out, they changed her book?
sometimes they do that. Sometimes they'll re-release a copy that is more in line with the screenplay for.
See, yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I know you. I'm like, make sure it's for original work. Because when you done,
Okay.
then we got to talk. Because that was my launch into, oh my God, I got to be aware. To that point, I was Black. Okay. That was the first thing I thought about with me. After I read Atwood, I was like, oh dear God, I'm a woman. A lot of people gonna see that first. And I have responsibility to know what y'all are doing as relates to women, not just Black women and the whole intersectionality thing, but women. Because you know from the movie now, from the show now, so this won't ruin it for you. The ability for someone to just go ahead and put a little line of code in there and cut me off from my money.
Yeah.
A lot of old women used to put money in the mattress. You know?
Okay.
You got to watch.
And some people feel like they shouldn't be doing that anymore. Please.
I'm gonna always have me a little. I ain't saying it's in my mattress because it ain't in my mattress, but I'm gonna always. Never am I gonna ever put all my eggs in one basket. I'm always gonna be. I'm Black in America and female and educated. But that's okay. Be afraid. Be very afraid. You gave me something else I'm gonna go for. But no, please enjoy that work. That work is amazing. I'm glad I encountered it as a young woman, just like when I encountered Jubilee as a young woman and read that all the way through. Most people would have probably said that was too mature. But I'm really glad that my parents didn't do that with me. Like if it was a work and I wanted to go for it, their thing was just come talk to us. If you have questions, come talk.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I read Jubilee, but I did not read Color Purple. I saw it, and that messed me up for a while. But I'm glad I had the parents who I had because they could explain the context of because I didn't grow up seeing that in my family. I didn't say it wasn't in my family. I said I didn't grow up seeing that in my family.
Right.
And it was just like, it's a lot for a child to watch that. Just like it's a lot for a child to watch Roots without family around to help give context. Right. Interestingly, I did read Roots too when I was really, really young. I read the Bible all the way cover to cover before I was 10, though. I'm weird.
And see, I started, I can't remember when I started reading the Bible and I hit my cover to cover, but it was sometime in high school. And yeah, but it was in my high school years. Yeah, girl, you were unique.
But I like challenging things. I like reading challenging things. I'm surprised you said you would read Huck Finn. Huck Finn gets a lot of people in trouble. You know that, right? Huck Finn was a banned book in my school district, and my AP Lit teacher said, "Yeah, we're reading it anyway."
I remember you telling me about that.
Milton Burke. Yes. Milton Burke was my teacher. Oh Lord, I hope he's still with us on the side. I do want to share this with you too, though. I got to do some acknowledgement. When you talk about teachers, though, who made an impact on you, who I hope I really thanked enough while I was still around them, Milton Burke is one of them. Even though I had one of the most significant disappointed in myself moments in his class, but I'm glad that I had it, and it was about Huck Finn. And that's why it's so strong with me. And I'll tell it really quick. It was we would read many of these classic works out loud in AP. This was senior year, and there were only 2 students in the school who you could classify as Black, me and Molly, and she was mixed. She's okay. She'd be okay with me saying that because that's how she identified. But there were only 2 of us who were taking AP Lit that year, to my recollection. I'm pretty sure because Aisha had transferred out of district to another school. So yeah, I can count every single Black from my school in our family.
Wow.
And so I was the only Black person in that class, and I knew how to read the dialect because not only am I Black, but I was born originally in the South. I had heard the dialect before that he used, and I'm pretty quick at adapting to that kind of stuff. But I felt a pressure to volunteer to read the part of Jim. Part of it was because I really didn't want to hear a white person struggling with it and making me angry. Even though some of them, now I look back at it, some of them grew up in houses where they're probably talking worse than that. But I also was like, this is something I can do, they can't do. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So I went for it, right? And did it. And then when I was done, I couldn't figure out why I felt bad. And I had to think on that for a long time. I felt like I did it for the wrong reason. And it made me feel dirty. It was like, that made you feel special. You're in this, mostly white school, and you were like, that's something you can't take from me. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. But I was like, but now they see me like a Black person who knows how to talk like that. So is that how she talked when she's by herself? Is she putting on I went to a whole really dark place with that one. And again, grateful I had the parents that I have, because they helped pull me back and like, you did it, son. If you ever get in a situation where you don't want to do that again, or you feel the pressure, you just make the decision and say, I really don't feel comfortable doing this right now. And if we need to have a conversation about it, offline, we can do so, that kind of thing. But it was a real maturation point for me. And I'm glad I had that before I got to Tougaloo. I could put that, because that would have been really trippy.
But you know what, though? What you're talking about is something that a lot of people miss. Many times in education, we focus on that end of the spectrum of Black and brown kids who are, they might be getting disciplined and all that stuff like that. But what we don't focus on is the other end. The kids that are gifted are, like you said, you can count. And it's sad because even today, it's still like that in some areas where they're in the school and they're one of 5 or one of 3 or whatever Black or brown kids in that school. And we're not talking about how that feels, what that does, because we're just like, oh, you're fine because you're smart and you're doing it. And, and so you have the parents that were able to sit with you, defend you, and help you to navigate what could have been murky waters. Many times, many of us, and it's unfortunate that we'll think this way, but it's like, where the white kids are at is where I want my kids to go, because I know they'll have a good education. And so we push them there. And sometimes we push them there and we don't have defense for them. We don't have conversation for them. We don't have that support, and they're just there trying to figure things out. And I've seen it go in so many different ways like you've talked about, where you just have those things of, how do they see me now, to having students that are like, I'm a special Black person now because I'm here. You little peons are over there. I've had to talk some of my kids down and say, stop with this I'm the exceptional Negro type of idea that you have, because no, you don't want to have that separation. You don't want to create this classism. And unfortunately, school systems will do that with Black kids, and they don't realize that they're doing it, because it's like, you're special. We're going to put you over here and make you feel like you have no connection to those kids over there. And I was like, don't cut that connection, because y'all are all together, and they just see education differently. They experience education differently, and you do, and it's okay. Find common grounds and things like that. One of my happiest moments was one of my students who went on to Brown, in his valedictorian speech. It wasn't a, y'all made me, mad because y'all looked at me as a nerd of this, or, whatever. He was just like, I see that we are all brothers and sisters. We are all together. and, we gonna kick ass in life, together. And that was one of the happiest things for me, because he was ready to make that separation. And I was like, you are going to regret doing that. And so
there at that decision point for him, for me, my fix was I made my mind up that I had to go to HBCU, because I did have a fracture. My parents are wonderful, but I still felt isolated from the other Black in the schools. And it took, because they were all playing sports, they were in the regular classes. And by regular, I just mean they weren't in the advanced placement classes. So I wasn't in class with them. I didn't spend time with them, except for when we went to church, for those of us who went to church together. And then it was awkward because they had the camaraderie. They'd grown up together. They knew each other. They were dating each other, or they were already related to each other, not in a weird way, not because but I just mean there were pre-existing ties that I didn't have, because I moved into that district when I was 14 years old. And so I sounded weird because I come from Iowa to Arkansas. And I had a different kind of curriculum. We had a whole different schedule. There was just so much. And by the time I lost the fight with my dad. I wanted to graduate early. I could have. I had enough credits to do so. He did not want me to graduate.
I did too. I wanted to graduate early.
And his justification was completely ludicrous to me still. I tell him to this day, it was ridiculous. He didn't want there to be a possibility of a 25-year-old man who would come hit on your daughter and turn around where it was. I was like, my high school literally was on the campus of the University of Arkansas, and it's full football, basketball team. Are you kidding me? I mean, if I wanted to, I could have gotten plenty of interesting situations right there at home while living out rent free. But when I left Fayetteville and I was going to go to New Orleans, you know that. But when I ended up at Tougaloo, I knew I had 4 years to figure out what kind of Black I needed to be, because I was going to be Black. One thing I was always going to be was Black. And I knew something was broken in me, and Tougaloo helped give me the space to figure out how I needed to reconstitute that part of me. And
same for me.
And it worked, because I have actual friendships with many of those folks I was in high school with who are Black now, because we're grown. They got kids. The high school stuff, thank God we were able to leave alone or whatever it was. And I came to understand it wasn't that they were trying to actively be malicious toward me. They didn't know me. I was a stranger.
Yeah, and a lot of times we really don't understand that is an issue that we are not addressing at all, and it creates a rift. And I'm just like, it doesn't have to, because I dealt with the same thing. I don't know if y'all did it for high school, but there was this trend a few years ago where it was like, I'm so this school, I remember this. And when my high school classmates started putting up all the stuff they remembered, I was just like, I didn't experience any of that, because they were all in these classes together. I was in the honors classes, I was in the AP classes. So my circle was completely different. And it wasn't that I didn't know them and I didn't interact with them, but many times I didn't feel like I was right there with them. And I went through a time period of, I think I'm the exceptional Negro. and I feel like going to Tougaloo helped me with that. And because if I would have, because truthfully, when I was in school, I really didn't know what an HBCU was. So when I was telling people that I was getting scholarships from Mississippi Valley, or I wanted to go to Southern in Louisiana, when I was telling people this, I was telling my white teachers, and there was this disappointment, and I couldn't understand why they were disappointed, because I was like, college is college. So I didn't know the concept of, right, I didn't know the concept of HBCUs and any of that. And so once I realized the places that I was courting was places that was going to be a fit for me, and I went, I was just like, oh, I can be Black. Because if I would have went to another school, I think I just would have continued what I was doing.
The masquerade.
Yeah, I would have, and I'm glad that I made the choices that I did. But I realized that with those honors, gifted AP kids, there has to be a level of support there to help them to understand that, you know, you can bridge the gap and to understand how these kids act now, and thankfully it's getting better, because now you will see some of the kids where they're just like, look, my GPA might be a 1 point something, but I'm cheering for you all the way that you got the 4 point whatever GPA, and you got this scholarship, and you going. So it's getting better, but there's still work to be done with that.
You just pointed out something to me too, and I'm gonna keep us moving because the hour's getting late. But I'm not the person that HBCUs try to recruit these days. At least me then is not the person who, I wasn't recruited by Tougaloo. I wasn't recruited by Xavier. I wasn't recruited. I made a decision that I thought I needed to go to one of these schools, and I pursued it relentlessly until I got to the point. I know, right? And part of, I think, the consequence of that, well, ironically, I wasn't recruited by UAPB or Tougaloo College in the very state that I received my high school diploma in too, just, fun fact. But one of the consequences was I felt like I invited myself into the HBCU experience, even though my grandparents are HBCU alums. My parents integrating classes of their colleges, Earlham and Wabash, white Quaker schools, okay, in the Midwest. So the HBCU line was broken between us, but I had an awareness. Like Savannah State, I knew them. I knew Spelman, I knew Morehouse. I knew all that because I was born in Georgia. But I always wondered whether or not they really wanted me, because it seemed like they were always looking for other folks. And it seemed like when I would walk in, sometimes they'd be, okay, what do you want now? And I'm just like, I'm just trying to get an education. I'm just trying to make the world better.
Because that those level of kids, those honors AP level, everybody wants to push them towards Ivy League. So I think a lot of times people automatically have the thought process, they don't want us anyway. And it's okay that, like, they're not saying anything negative in that sense, but it's like, we know they're looking for something else. So this whole shift in the narrative that's happening now in terms of HBCUs and people championing them more and more, now you're seeing the top Black kids like, I'm going to Spelman. No, I'm going to Morehouse. I'm going to Howard, and things like that.
But it be a decision, they've been seeing it all day. I'm just like, yes. And I know these children. I'm like, yes, they're going to be wonderful. And my point is that HBCUs now have a golden opportunity, and I think a responsibility, to not just be focused on that child coming to the HBCU, but maybe part of the ministry and the calling and the justification for why we still need them is, there are kids like you and me who were going through those AP things, who really desperately need to have a little time, even if it's just a summer program, where they can come and exhale. For me, that happened at Xavier. It was Super Scholar Excel. I got to come there, and it was okay to be blackity black.
Okay. Yes, and my dad, that was my dad's selling point about HBCUs. And I did not understand, because I was like, oh no, I'm gonna go to Ole Miss. I'm good. I really didn't get, and then again, like I said, the colleges that I was choosing, I was choosing them because they had these programs that I was like, I'm interested in this. Okay, this is what I want to do. And I wasn't looking at them like, well, this is an HBCU. This isn't, because I really didn't have that around me. But my dad was like, I want you to relax, because even though I wasn't like, with your situation, the minority, but I still dealt with mess in high school and in middle school. And so he was like, I want you to relax for 4 years. And I really did not understand what he meant. I had no idea. I was like, I don't know what you mean, relax. You know how you're just so used to being on guard, you don't even know you're on guard.
And you can let the guard down a little bit when you're
right. And then once I got to Tougaloo, I was like, this is what you mean.
It was
so
portion of my life.
Yeah.
Because I had been taken from Georgia, raised in Iowa, and then plopped back down in the not quite South.
Yeah.
Of Northwest Arkansas.
Arkansas is South.
Northwest Arkansas is not quite South. Come for another visit. Let me take you up there, up in the field. So
okay.
Once you see it, you'll understand what I mean. Beautiful place, wonderful land of opportunity. It's not really South. When you're walking in a southern state and you hear a Midwestern twang, it'll mess your head up. And you get it's a different kind of melting pot or salad bowl, whichever you need. One segment called Spill the Tea. You have a choice. You can either tell the people some of my business that you know that you think they don't, that they need to know about me, or you can ask me a question, one question, anything, and I have to answer it honestly and thoroughly.
You know what? my spill the tea isn't like, like pour it up tea per se, but the one thing that I would say that I feel like people don't get and they don't see, girl, you are so much fun. You are so much fun. And I learned it from NYU with our act the fool selves and us. Let's get up in 3 o'clock in the morning and let's go to the movies. The way we roam. Yes. The way we roam the cities. And the way we hit parties and we danced. And I was just like, you are so much fun. And I feel like people just made you the mama and they wanted to keep you as the mama. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, Marta's fun. I enjoy her.
I ain't nobody mama. Ain't no critter pass through this body.
You silly. And so that's my tea on you. That's my tea because I always have fun hanging out with you.
I have fun with you too. I'm really now.
I know, right?
All right. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this thing up?
No, I don't have anything I want to say. I have enjoyed talking, and I guess that's Cheska's piece because she's ready to be walked.
I hear you, Cheska. I'm gonna give you mama that. Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this as always, and thank you.
No problem.
All right, you enjoy the rest of the evening, your business, all fun, everything.
All right, girl. Thank you. Bye. Talk to you later.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Showing Our Sass Season 2. We appreciate everyone who's been with us along this route. If you're new, you know what to do. Go ahead and like, subscribe, share, comment, all the good things. And I just want you to know we appreciate you so much and look forward to bringing you even more things. We'll see you next week.